There's so many examples of wording and pronunciation and accent that and phrasing. There's a lot of differences there that I think are interesting to me. And I can't imagine that I'm the only one that realizes this, but I think that it's interesting to me because of the perspective that was based in my youth. I'll give you an example. So there's a channel that I like a lot, the Jolly Boys, Josh and Ollie. They eat different food from all over the world. Of course, I'm most interested in the food that they eat from America. And it's interesting to see their perspective and their attitude towards what we call certain foods. I'll go into a few details, but the first one that comes to mind is a biscuit. Okay, so a biscuit to Brits is a cookie. To Americans, a cookie is a cookie. A biscuit is a biscuit. Those are two different things. And the thing that I find incredibly weird is that on the Josh and Ollie videos, they spend a lot of time sharing food with a young preparatory group of boys and their headmaster. And the thing that really, really gets to me is that they don't seem to, and I say they, what I mean is Josh and Ollie, and to a much greater degree, the boys that they're sharing these foods with, and the headmaster, and a lot of people that they interact with that are British, say the same thing, which is that they will experience an American biscuit, and they're expecting a cookie, and it is completely unfathomable to them that a word can be used for more than one thing. Completely. In fact, they find it so impossible to believe that it seems offensive to them that we would call a biscuit and that we call their biscuits a cookie. It's just a word. But here's where I think my upbringing puts a bizarre spin on this, because I grew up on PBS. I mean, every day I grew up on PBS, from my earliest memories to when my kids were born, and as I was raising them. And a lot of the content that I consumed as a young person on PBS was English, was British. So, and of course, that starts off with Doctor Who. But the thing that it allowed me to understand from a very young age was that people from different parts of the world called the same thing different names in different parts of the world, or will call different things the same name. And it was just something that I learned as a youth. I learned the difference between a biscuit and a cookie. Pudding is something completely different in British culture than it is here. And I just learned to accept that from a very young age. And it wasn't that I felt that they were wrong. I just knew from a very young age that there were differences. And it never offended me. It never put me off, anything like that. I just realized it was just different words. And it helped me to understand from a very young age that there's a difference between an accent and a pronunciation. I was just watching the Josh and Ollie video where they were sharing a Thanksgiving dinner with Ollie's dad, and he had the exact same reactions that I'm talking about. They served him a biscuit. They called it a biscuit. But they added a codicil. They said, okay, this is an American biscuit. And his father simply couldn't understand that. He could not fathom that it was not a scone. A scone is something completely different. And even I know that I've known that my entire life, that a scone is not a biscuit. But he just couldn't understand it. And then when it came time to various desserts, things like that, one of the items that they had to serve was pecan pie. Now, I realize that even here in America that pecan and pecan are pronunciations that are going to be based on where you're from in America. I happen to be from South Texas, so it was a pecan, anyway, Ollie's dad, he was completely flummoxed. He was totally lost when it came to, well, that's not a pudding. Oh yeah, and that was the other thing, is that they had banana pudding, and it was so funny to watch them as they served it, because they said that their source for Thanksgiving dinner had let them know that Nilla wafers needed to be part of the banana pudding, and they couldn't understand that. So what they did was they served up a huge bowl of banana pudding, and then they sprinkled a half a dozen Nilla wafers on top of it, which is it. I mean, I'm not a fan of banana pudding at all. I have never been, but at least I know that that's not how it's prepared or served. So that was kind of comical to watch them, because it was really frustrating to me to see their attitude towards what certain dishes were, how they're prepared, and what they were called, what the ingredients were, things like that. And it was comical to me to see their reactions, because they were not approaching it with an open mind and with ready to try new foods. They were approaching it from, well, this is all wrong. Everything about this is wrong. Turkey is not served on Thanksgiving. Turkey is served on Christmas. There were so many things that they couldn't comprehend. And Ollie's dad was head and shoulders above all of that, where he was completely lost. He tried, to his credit, he tried all of the dishes, and he hated most of them. But I think that was because he was expecting his own little world. He was expecting the food and the drink and everything else that he grew up with, and that so here's another part of this that makes it interesting to me, is because as I was growing up, as I was watching PBS, I was watching Mystery and Doctor Who and Second Sight and all of these British shows, even the period pieces. The thing that I realized is that there are differences, and that doesn't make me, as an American or a Texan or a South Texan, right. It doesn't make them right. It's just a difference. We call football here, American football, right? But in a lot of the rest of the world, football means soccer. We call soccer. And some folks in other parts of the world do call it soccer, even though they're adamant that only Americans call it soccer. That's absolutely not true. But I just think it's interesting that there can be such a closing of British minds that they can't comprehend that something might be called something different, and that flavors are going to be regional, or at least, depending on how big that region is, right? The region may be the entire United States, or the region might be just South Texas. So Brits, it would seem, by and large anyway, are not willing to accept that just because something, a food or a drink, root beer, is called something or tastes a particular way, and is cherished and loved by someone in another part of the world, doesn't make them right. It doesn't make the Brits right, because they can't understand that we don't call it pudding. That, pudding in the grander scheme of things to a Brit is just a dessert, right? I mean, it doesn't, we call pudding the jiggly shit that comes in a fucking box, right? But I'm not a fan of pudding, by the way. Or Jell-O. Ooh, I don't like Jell-O. But anyway, the thing that stands out to me is these differences that seemingly I take for granted, that I accept wholesale, that it's just something that started in my youth, where it was just like, okay, I understand that there's a difference. That doesn't make me right, and it doesn't make the Brits right. It's just a difference. So what is that? What is the point? I guess the point is that I see lots and lots of creators from, especially revolving around food, from the UK, from Britain, all of the different countries that are in the UK, in that part of the world, I'll say that way, that they cannot comprehend. And I fear that part of this lack of comprehension or lack of acceptance on their part, I fear that some of that is just to create negative style hate content, where they have to generate their own drama, right? Just for the content. Maybe that's what this video is, but I don't think so. I think that this video is about pointing out that it doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't have to be, I hate everything about this. It's just different. That's all. It's just different. So I will say that there are a few things that I think are unforgivable. There are things that are interesting about people that come to Texas, not just Brits, but especially Brits, that come to Texas, and they'll try different foods that we take for granted here, but that I find it interesting that people that will recommend to these travelers, to these food bloggers, that, oh, you have to have a Whataburger when you come to Texas. And it seems like their recommendations don't go past that. And I feel completely safe in my own opinion that if I'm going to tell somebody that's never had a Whataburger that they have to go try a Whataburger, I'm going to give them what I feel like is a first-timer's proper experience and expectation to set for ordering off of the menu. Now, I know that my particular favorite things from Whataburger are not something that I would recommend to a first-timer, because it doesn't give that pure, genuine Whataburger experience. A #1 with cheese. Come on. I mean, the there's so many experiences. I remember there was another couple of guys. I can't remember what their channel's name was, but they were doing the same thing. They were Brits, and they were here in Texas, and they ended up in San Antonio. They were driving all around the state, and they ended up in San Antonio, and they got invited to somebody's cookout, and they just started off with some breakfast tacos. I'll talk about the word tacos here in just a moment. But they started off by saying that, okay, this is standard average bacon and egg taco, or potato, egg, and bacon taco, with cheese, whatever, served on a flour tortilla for, delicate taste buds. Anyway, and these two British guys, the one that, because I had watched a lot of their content, and the one that obviously traded on drama, he grabbed the taco, and then he turned it over and took a bite of the taco right in the middle, in the meaty part of the taco. Who does that? What, Well, I say that because of my own experience, my own life experiences growing up eating tacos. Who fucking turns it over and takes a bite out of the middle of it like that? And when I saw him do that, I thought to myself, why did the people that invited him for this cookout not tell him this is how you eat a taco? Maybe they took it for granted. Maybe they assumed that a human being would look at this folded up piece of flatbread with savory items in it, and they would take a bite out of the end of it. But that's not what he did. And again, I think that really the biggest part of the reason why he chose to eat it that way was because he sat down and he observed everybody around him eating it the regular way, the right way. I don't know what the correct word would be there. But he thought that in order to generate his own drama, that he would turn it over and eat it, take a bite out of the middle of it, because he knew that it would upset a very, very large number of people. And I fear that that's exactly why he did it, was for the clicks. So, anyway, the same people, they go to Whataburger, right? Any traveler, anybody that has never had Whataburger, there's all of these people, and I'm not just talking about from around the world. I'm talking about people that are here from other parts of America, God forbid California, right? And they get here, and they're so excited that we have In-N-Out in Texas, right? Because the In-N-Out is the best burger according to them. Me being a native Texan, right? They say that because they're from California, right? So that's what they were brought up on, right? That's what their preference is. That's what they learned on. I, on the other hand, learned on Whataburger. And in my opinion, Whataburger is the best burger that money can buy. Double meat, double cheese with mayonnaise instead of mustard, large order of onion rings, and a big, giant, ice cold, in my case, Diet Dr. Pepper. And, or a patty melt, would be good in place of the burger. But anyway, so many of these people that think that Whataburger is nothing special is because when they went there, they had something that they should not have had as a first experience. They'll get the fish sandwich. Well, you can't get the fish sandwich anymore. Those are not available at Whataburger. But they'll get, the grilled chicken sandwich or something like that. And it's like, that's not why you go to Whataburger. Maybe after a couple of years, after you've experienced every single item and you've developed your preferences and things like that, then you can say, okay, well, yeah, I like the grilled chicken burger, whatever the thing, the salad, things like that. But in my opinion, that is not something that I would ever recommend to somebody to have as their first experience at Whataburger. So anyway, all of that is to say that, circling back around, all of that is to say that I find it interesting especially with Josh and Ollie, but with many, especially Brits, that will say that anything that is not what they are expecting is wrong. And I think that that opinion, that way of thinking about things is wrong. And again, I have to attribute my openness to trying different foods and drinks from other parts of the world, even if it's called the same thing or something different than what we would call them here, that I don't assume that my way is the right way. And I hope that you maybe can think about something that you like to eat or something that you like to drink, that if you've got somebody in your world, your sphere of influence that might call something different, is to not think that you are right and that they are wrong. It's just a difference. And, if you can help educate somebody about what a difference is rather than being right and wrong, please, by all means, do it. But just remember that in this political climate, in this time of the world, that there's enough things to hate out there. And just because we call it a biscuit doesn't mean that we're wrong. And that and it's not a scone and it's not a cookie. So, just try to keep that in mind. And if you can take somebody to Whataburger for the first time, doesn't matter if they're from, England or if they're from California, take them to Whataburger. And when they say, oh, well, this is still not nearly as good as In-N-Out, point out to them that maybe the reason they feel that way is because it's what they grew up on. And maybe the reason that I feel that Whataburger is the best is because it's what I grew up on. That doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. That just makes us have a difference of opinion, a difference in wording, a difference in expectation. So anyway, have a good holidays and have some good food, and please hug the people that you love. Don't be shy and tell them that you love them. Bye.